Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for dialing in. My name is Liam. I'm one of the MBA recruitment managers here at Saïd Business School. Today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about scholarships and the range that are available. I just wanted to ask a quick question, if I may, for the people that have dialed in. In the questions box, can you just very quickly drop me a quick yes, I can hear you, or no, I can't hear you. And for those that can't hear you, probably haven't had that instruction, so that would be difficult. But just let me know if you can hear me okay, and we'll make a move as soon as we can. Okay, everyone's coming through with a yes. Perfect. Thank you very much for that. So we're going to go straight into this. This is going to take maybe 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how many questions you lovely people have. We're going to talk about scholarships and the range of those that are available. So if we make a start on the first slide, the contents of the webinar are going to follow these relatively vague lines. We're going to have a little bit about the application requirements to the program itself, and then talk more about the application requirements for some of the scholarships that will require extra information. We'll go through some of the scholarships that are available with a focus on a couple that we often get a lot of questions about. We'll then talk more about the university scholarships, so ones you can find through the college or even some external sources. We'll then go into a bit more of a detailed look at the application system and how you apply for those scholarships within the application form for the MBA program itself. There'll be a little bit about deadlines and then some questions at the end. So if you do have questions, please do send them through. If we're talking about that particular topic on that slide in that moment, we'll make sure we answer them as and when they're relevant, or we'll take some time towards the end and answer as many of them as we can. So without further ado, let me introduce a colleague who's in the room with me. I'm delighted today to be joined by Breanne. So Breanne, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Breanne Savela and I work at the School Center for Social Entrepreneurship. So obviously I'm here to talk about the School Scholarship today and looking forward to answering any questions that you might have.
So first of all, thank you, Breanne. We're going to talk a little bit about the business school itself and with a focus on the application requirements. And we're not going to spend too long on this slide. We do have an application tips webinar that is available to sign up to on January the 3rd, just a week or so before the next deadline. So if you're looking for more information about the application requirements for the program itself, please do join that webinar in early January. For now, we're going to very quickly run through these. So on the screen, you can see all of the things that we need in order to submit a complete application. And this is an application for the program itself. But because today is about scholarships, we're going to move on to some of the options that are available to you. And the first thing that I would say is that anything that has a double red asterisk next to it are ones that require some additional material. So outside of the slide that you've just seen, there'll be an extra essay, possibly. There'll even be an interview, either a Skype interview or an interview in person here in Oxford for the scholarship itself. So a piece of advice that I will keep coming back to during this session is to do a lot of research behind which scholarships you think you qualify for and their associated requirements for applying to that funding option. A lot of the time it will be on top of the actual MBA program application requirements that we saw on the previous slide. Anything on this list that is listed as a Saïd Business School Foundation scholarship are managed by the business school ourselves, and some of the other ones that don't have that title are managed in conjunction with or in partnership with an organization outside of the business school. And there's a bit of a difference there in terms of when some might be available versus availability all year round. Generally speaking, the Saïd Business School Foundation scholarships are available in every stage, whereas some of the other ones aren't available beyond January. So if you're thinking of applying in either January or April, and we'll talk about deadlines a bit later on, then January might be more important because it's the cutoff point for a lot of these scholarship options. As you can see, some of the scholarships with a blue asterisk have some regional criteria, so only available to people of a certain nationality or applying from a certain geography around the world. Going into just a little bit more detail about Pershing Square specifically, this is for the 1+1 program and only for the 1+1 program. So if you're thinking of applying to the 1+1, this is an option that's open to you. It's full tuition, so it covers tuition for both years of the program, the MSc in the first year and the MBA in the second year. And as well as that, you'll have a partial living expense allowance that is sent your way too. What we look for in Pershing Square are people that have strong academic achievement, people that can show leadership potential, and that's demonstrated through experience so far, but also motivation to do great things in the future. strong personal character, integrity and commitment, and you have a focus, or at least an intention to focus, on addressing world-scale social challenges in your career, either through an existing organization or through development of a new enterprise. We want you to have the ability to envision how to achieve scalable and sustainable solutions to these challenges, and an articulated vision on how the 1+1 specifically will allow you to fulfill those objectives. There is an essay that you will have to write as part of your MBA application that should be included with your application to the program around why you think the 1+1 is relevant and important to your career. And that really talks to that final bullet point on the slide. We want to have a strong argument from you that without the 1+1, that partnership of MSc and MBA, then your career would not have the kind of success that you think it will if you were able to study both of those things together. While we're on the subject of Pershing Square, if anybody has any questions that they would like to send through, please do. We're going to move on to the Scholarship in just a moment, but I just want to give you a few seconds to send through any questions that you might have regarding this particular scholarship. Okay, so moving on to Scholl, and this is where I'll hand over to Breanne in just a moment. On here, you can see what we're looking for Scholl. So Breanne, if you don't mind talking a little bit around what you're looking for, the level of scholarship that's available, if possible, how many are generally given out each year.
Thanks, Liam. So as you can see from the slide, things that we are looking for are really entrepreneurial people that have done entrepreneurial things in their past. And so unlike Pershing, where you could have the intention to do something, we are looking for people that have a track record. So we're typically looking for people that have preferably 3 years of experience working on whatever their chosen focus is. And again, that work needs to be focused in an entrepreneurial way. So we're not looking for people that are just kind of recreating the status quo. We're looking for people who are looking at an entire system, a problem that is within that system, and how do they change the root causes of that problem to improve the system overall. So again, this kind of falls into you can see there on the bullets, the personal qualities of a social entrepreneur. So these are qualities that, yes, you have to be innovative, you have to have a different mindset, you have to have a systems thinking lens, you have to be persistent, resilient, spot opportunities, etc., etc., etc. If you'd like more information on exactly what we mean by that, you can look at scholarship.org, and we have all of our full criteria listed there. We'll also ask questions around how the Oxford MBA is critical to your career directory. We're looking for people that can really take advantage of everything Oxford and the Saïd Business School and the Scholl Center have to offer in terms of using that experience to then go on and create more impact after they graduate. And financial need is also considered in the scholarship. So while it is a merit-based scholarship, it also has a component of financial need. And this can be different things for different people. You will be asked to elaborate on that in your application, but it could range from anything to, I've invested all of my profits from my startup back into my startup. It could be perhaps that you're supporting other family members, et cetera, et cetera. So you will have an opportunity to talk about that in your application. In terms of applying, you do need to complete the Scholl Scholarship essay questions as part of your MBA application. So when you submit the full MBA application, you need to submit the Scholl Scholarship essays that can be found under the funding section. And I think Liam's going to talk a little bit more about where things are located within the MBA application. In terms of benefits, it is a full scholarship. So it covers all of your tuition and college fees. And we also do give a living allowance, which is in the neighborhood of about 14,000, 15,000 pounds, depending on the year. So it should be enough for one person to live in Oxford for the time they're here doing the MBA. The other big perk of this scholarship, as you could guess from the slide, and perhaps if you've looked into the scholarship at all, is beyond the funding aspect of it, you also become part of the Scholl Scholar alumni community. And this is about 70 people to date. We give up to about 5 scholarships each year. And so we've been doing it for around 15 years. So it's a total of around 70 people. And it's really an amazing community of people that have been using entrepreneurship for positive social change. And I'm happy to answer any questions as they come through. And I'll hand it back over to Liam.
Thank you. Just a point there quickly on the type of profile. A lot of the time we get questions about, well, what does a typical scholar look like? For both Pershing Square and also for Scholl, you can find examples of those profiles on the website. Breanne has a point.
Yeah, and I would just add that if you look at the website, you'll see there are 3 main categories of people that we consider, and that is a founder, so someone who has started a venture or an organization or an initiative, An entrepreneur, so somebody that perhaps is working within a larger organization that has worked to change that organization and create something new within that organization. And the third category is what we call a high impact career professional. So this could be someone who's focused on a particular problem or issue, and they've done it in a variety of ways. So maybe they were an advocate, or they were a policymaker, or they could have been a founder as well. But the difference there is that they focused on one particular problem and attacked it from various angles throughout their career using entrepreneurial approaches.
Thank you. I think you've just answered all the questions that came through, Breanne. Good work. So we're going to move on to a little bit about the scholarships that you might find in the wider university or also in the colleges. You don't have to be necessarily a member of the college that offers a scholarship to apply or be eligible for that scholarship. So another part of your funding search might include looking at the college level to see what graduate scholarships are available for incoming students. A lot of people are able to successfully get some funding through that method as well. With regards to how you would find that, this is what the University of Oxford graduate admissions website looks like. If you go onto here, and we'll share these links around at the end of the session, so please don't worry, you'll be able to find essentially a scholarship search engine that allows you to look for your own personal circumstances and spits out a number of results that you are eligible for, that you can qualify for. So the way to do that, click on Start Your Search at the bottom of that screen, and then this brings up this next screen. So just a few guides here. Fee status, just please choose where you're from. The fee is the same for everybody in terms of the tuition fee, so domestic or international students don't pay anything different for the MBA program. Show you the fees for 1920 if that's the year that you're looking to join and matriculate, and you will start your course in that same year. Make sure the subject area has Saïd Business School selected. Do you wish to search for scholarships? Yes, of course, that's why you're here. Have you started your course already? No. Nationality or country of residence. If you hold dual nationality, or if you have a nationality that is different from where you're ordinarily resident, then by all means search for both. But you will have to do two separate searches. You can't choose multiple options from this drop-down menu. So please initiate one search for one and then do a second search for the other one. Leave the college blank, because at this stage you won't know what college you're in. If you're looking for a particular college scholarship, then if you know what college that is, you can put that in, but to get the most wide range results, then leave it as empty as you can. Then you'll choose the right degree program. So for us, it's the business administration, the master's in business administration. So choose that, and then as you go through that page, you'll come to the results. And this, as an example, will show you that 37 scholarships were found for a new student from Germany studying the MBA. There is a tick box that you'll see at the top of that screen, which shows you only the scholarships that require a separate application or additional materials. So if you tick that box, all that will be left are the things that you will have an extra essay to write, or a possible interview that you'll have to come or do over Skype. Anything that disappears from these results when you tick that box, you're automatically considered for when you apply for the MBA. So for those Saïd Foundation scholarships that I mentioned earlier, there is no application requirement outside of your MBA application. You will automatically be considered for all the areas that you're eligible for by the admissions committee when we receive your MBA application, and if you're successful in your interview and then gaining a place on the course. Once you've submitted your application, you're looking then at maybe looking externally for scholarships. And so there are some other options, and again, we'll send a link around to this at the end of this session, that will allow you to search for things outside of the University of Oxford. It's worth looking into this as well to see if you have some eligibility for anything there. I think what we're trying to portray here is that there is a wide range of options available for funding support should you want to come and study here at the university. We'll share these links probably either in the questions box or in the chat box towards the end of this session. So please don't worry about trying to write down that path that you can see at the top of that screen. So what's next? You've thought about applications, you've thought about scholarships. This is what the application system actually looks like when you start your application. And please don't think you have to wait for the day before the deadline or to do all of it in one go. The application system will allow you to stop and start and save your progress as you return back. So log in for the first time or log in to continue an application. please be aware that you should not start multiple applications because any work that you've saved in your initial application will not be replicated across to any new application that you start. So just return to the same one each time you want to add something new. Within that, you'll have all of these sections that you'll have to complete. The funding section will only become available after you have entered something into the program choice, that third option down. So for there, you would choose MBA or 1+1, and then the funding option becomes active and becomes live, and you can click on that. In this example, for the benefit of today's webinar, we've clicked 1+1 so that the Pershing Square Scholarship option is there. And you can see that it's asking for an essay for each one of those options. So if you're thinking that SCOL is one that you want to apply for, within your MBA application portal, what we're looking at on the screen, you will have to upload your essay at the same time, as Breanne has mentioned. So please do have a look at what those questions are, and there's a link you can see under SCOL there, that hyperlink that allows you to see what they're looking for in their essays. So make sure you read those thoroughly and write an essay that fits those as best as you can. Breanne, do you have anything to say about that?
No, very well said. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. There are some scholarships that are outside of the university that you will have to upload an essay and also tick a box. And those are these three that you can see on the screen in front of you now. So again, my overall piece of advice here is to do as much research as you can, not only into which ones you might be eligible for, but also what those requirements for those associated options are. It's not the end of the world if you don't upload the essay. If you don't tick that box, it doesn't mean that we can't then retroactively go back in and try and make that change. It's just much more preferable for us for you to have everything in one place ready in one time for that application deadline. So please do ensure that you upload everything when you can before the deadline passes. In terms of application dates, stage 1 and stage 2 have closed. Stage 3 is the next one that's coming up. And if you're looking at scholarships, especially things like SCOL or Pershing Square, this is the one that you must meet. So stage 3 is 11th of January. That means that your MBA application must be in. Your scholarship essays, if you need them, must be in, because the shortlisting process in terms of SCOL and Pershing Square will happen shortly after this deadline has passed. We will wait to see who has been successful from the first 3 stages, who is looking to apply for Pershing Square or SCOL or any of those extra scholarships, and then shortlist across all 3 groups at once. So people so far haven't been shortlisted for SCOL or Pershing Square. That process has not yet started. So if you're thinking that you're going to be at a disadvantage for those by applying in January and just making that deadline, that is not the case. If you have any concerns about scholarships as a whole and think that applying in April means that there's no scholarships left, that's not necessarily true. The Said Business Foundation scholarships are still there. Occasionally, we might make an offer to a candidate earlier on in the year that's included some scholarship, and if they choose to decline that offer or choose to go to another school, that money does come back to us where we can use it for somebody else. So there is still some option in terms of scholarship opportunities available at that final stage. But if the timeline for your application works in terms of getting a strong application in time for January, then that is by far, I would say, the recommended course of action and the essential course of action for those scholarships that do have that expiration date of that January stage.
Can I just add one thing, Liam, in terms of timelines and dates that are important? If you go to schoolscholarship.org, if you're interested in the SCOL scholarship, we also have a timeline that's specific for SCOL. And that tells you each stage of the process and when you need to do things by. Because in addition to submitting your essays in the MBA application, if you are accepted onto the MBA and admitted to the school and you're interested in SCOL, there's another online application that you'll have to submit later on in the process. And it's very simple. It's just basically where you're going to be on the interview days and those sorts of things. So it's not a really intensive application, but there is a second part of the SCOL scholarship application called the online application. And if you're interested to see the timelines of how this all plays out for SCOL, you can check that out on schoolscholarship.org.
Thank you. And so just moving on to the final slide, next steps, again, research your options, really have a look into what you're eligible for, what you might qualify for, and more importantly, what application requirements you need to meet that criteria. This webinar is being recorded and you'll receive a recording of this via email in the next day or so. So if you're looking to maybe hear some of the information again, we've got some questions that have come through that we'll try and address in the next few moments then listen to that recording one more time. And if you have any further questions, please do feel free to email us at that MBA recruitment email address you can see on the screen. One point just to make here is that the scholarship decision process is often separate from the admission process. So if you apply to the program and you're interviewed and we make you an offer, that will normally be in the form of an email sent on the decision day. That email will not include any news about a scholarship, because the admissions committee will then meet separately after we know who has been admitted to then understand who we want to offer the scholarships to. So there'll be a separate scholarship communication that is sent outside of the initial "you have been accepted onto the program" communication. Once you have received an offer of a place on the course, you'll have access to a post-offer intranet site. We do have a number of scholarships that become available throughout the year. We've recently had a couple of new scholarships that are available to candidates that have already been accepted, and that post-offer site will have all of the details of those developments. So if you do miss out on a scholarship in this round, there may be more opportunities later on in the year for you to still qualify for something new, or we'll bring your name back into the conversation about scholarships again in April if you're unsuccessful in January. And so once you've applied to the program and are under consideration for scholarships, you will be under consideration for the rest of that academic recruitment cycle. We're just going to mute the microphone just for a few moments. Thank you very much for your company and for your questions. Please do keep sending those questions through. We have quite a lot of time to get through them, so hopefully we'll be able to address them all. There's no such thing as a bad question, and if you're wondering what the answer might be, I'm sure other people are as well. So please do send them through, and we'll be right back with you in just a few moments. Hello everyone, thank you very much for holding there with us. We're back with some questions. Thank you again for sending them through. We're going to try and get to as many of these as we can. The first question we've had, which has been repeated a couple of times by other people, so clearly is a common theme. Can you apply for only one scholarship, or can you apply for more than one? So there's nothing stopping you from applying for multiple scholarships if you feel you meet the criteria for those scholarships. That's probably the first important thing to say. For the ones that you're considered for automatically, those Said Business Foundation scholarships, there's a good chance you might get a couple of different options that you could accept both of, for example, because those scholarships are given out more for less specific profiles and more for things like academic merit or regional scholarships. And so you could get one based on your region, or you could get one based on your profile or based on your academic scores. And it's possible you might get more than one of those. For the ones that look at particular profiles, such as Skull or Pershing Square or Limbury or Jacobs, then I would say it's unlikely that you'll fit the profiles well enough for multiple of those to get awarded multiple of those. There are some crossover areas, I think, maybe between Pershing Square and Skull, but as Breanne pointed out earlier, Skull is looking for real outcomes rather than Pershing Square, which is looking for maybe an inclination to make change in the future. So that's an important differentiation. So you probably wouldn't be able to qualify for both for that reason. But in general, my answer is you can apply for as many as you think you qualify for. We had a follow-on question to that regarding the essays that you write for those scholarships. For example, there's one scholarship committee who makes the decision. Do they view the other essays that you've written? Does it impact their decision? I'll talk about this from the MBA application point of view, and I'm not sure if Breanne has a point that she'd like to make after that. From our point of view, we look at your application requirements in the business school for your admission for the program. So that's that first slide that we went through: your undergraduate degree, your GMAT score or GRE score, your program essays, not the scholarship essays, your work experience, and your letters of recommendation. So in terms of being accepted onto the MBA, we probably won't use your scholarship essays too much to make that decision, because they are specifically for that funding. Breanne, I think you had a point you wanted to make.
Yeah, just in regards to the Skull Scholarship, the panel will have your MBA application, your full application, as well as your Skull Scholarship essays, and the other information we'll ask for you for the Skull Scholarship. And they will look at both. So just a bit of context for you there. And then returning back to the question about can you apply for multiple scholarships, I would agree completely with Liam. And I would also just say that if you are applying for Pershing and Skull, that's completely fine with us at the Skull Center. You just have to keep us up to date where you are in the process for Pershing, because although we do look for a track record of proven outcomes and impact, and Pershing could perhaps consider you if you have an idea, there are a lot of common themes between those two scholarships. So I would say if you think you fit both criteria and you are interested in 1+1 and the one-year MBA, and you haven't quite decided which one, which path you're going to take, I would encourage you to apply for both, as long as you keep us updated as to where you are in the process. And of course, we work at the school to make sure we coordinate with the relevant departments in the school to know where you are as well.
Thank you. We've had a question about, can we apply for a scholarship in round 4 for the following year? So if I'm understanding this question correctly, you mean apply in April, but join in September 2020 in the following year, in which case the answer is no. You would need to apply in the application windows that start in September 19 to join in September 20. If you apply in April but join in September, does your scholarship carry over? Then yes, of course it does. That's the year that you're applying for. So I'm sorry if I've misunderstood that question, but no, you can't apply a year in advance and carry that scholarship over. You can only apply within that academic cycle, ready to start the September in the following year. We've had a couple of questions around scholarships that are available for African students. Well, I'll talk about regional scholarships in general. In terms of Africa, we have an Africa fund that we do give to the strongest African candidates. And by strongest, I don't necessarily mean academic merit. I mean profile, I mean future career, I mean something that's unique in their profile that we might not be able to find in somebody else. We're trying to build a unique and diverse cohort that's interesting and engaging for everybody as it possibly can be. And so if there's something in your profile outside of academic strength that we think we won't be able to find in somebody else, and this goes for all regions, that might be enough for us to think that we want to offer some funding to you as well. So specifically for Africa, as the question was alluding to, We have African nationality, so candidates that have a citizenship in one of the African countries are available to apply and eligible to apply for those. And it's nothing that you have to do extra. It's just based on your profile, and it will be given to people for a number of reasons: academic merit, future career, and also just something unique in their profile. Please do keep sending these questions through. Some of them are repeating slightly, so bear with me for one moment. We've had a question around how important the GMAT or the GRE is when it comes to the scholarship. So let me answer that question on behalf of the school, and then if Breanne wants to add to anything, she can. So again, from an MBA application, from a place on the course point of view, your GMAT or your GRE is an important factor. It's not the only important factor, but it does form part of our opinion. And for obvious reasons, I would say try and achieve as high a score as you can. You probably have seen, if you've done any research, that our median GMAT score is around 690. A 650 is what we advertise as a minimum on the website. That's on the GMAT. Obviously, the GRE equivalent would be about a 160 on the verbal and a 161 on the quant. That's what you should be aiming for. Now, again, from a program point of view, if you come in a little bit below that, but you have strengths elsewhere in your application, that might still be okay. If you come in with a really strong GMAT, but some other parts of your application aren't as strong, you might only just be about at that 2-year work experience mark, as an example, then the GMAT on its own probably won't make or break your application to the program. Breanne, is there anything you wanted to talk about in terms of the scholarship viewpoint?
Yeah, I'll just say, to echo that, we look at individuals as a whole in terms of all the different parts of your application. We need you to have a GMAT or GRE that enables you to, that indicates you would be able to do well academically on the MBA course. But in terms of priorities for school, I would say while GMAT scores and GRE scores are important, and do play into our decision-making process, I would say the focus of school is more the outcomes and the positive impact that you've created through an entrepreneurial approach to a specific problem that you're trying to solve on a systemic level.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We've had a question that talks about how they still lack the GMAT and the IELTS scores, so the English requirement scores, along with the application fee, and what should they prioritize in starting the screening process. So by lack, I think you mean you're yet to take those tests, so please correct me if I'm wrong. What I would say is, anecdotally, the piece of the application that seems to require the most dedication, the most number of hours, is the GMAT score. If you speak to people that are applying or have recently applied, then they will say anything between 50 to 100 hours of study has been required to get the GMAT score that they're looking to achieve to strengthen their application. So if you're yet to do the GMAT and the English proficiency test, I would say the GMAT probably would be the thing you would focus on first, because it might take the longest time. And also, don't wait too late to book that GMAT test date, because they can get quite busy. The availability of centers will vary in different parts of the world, and you don't want to miss the deadline just because you have not sat your GMAT test yet. We do need all components of that application to be ready on or before the deadline for your application to be considered complete. So please don't spend all your time studying and then go to book your test and realize that those dates are no longer available. Give yourself a test date to aim towards and then study appropriately. Similar to that question, we've had a question around planning to retake the GMAT in January. Can you send in the new scores after you submit your application? You can. Your application will be considered on the score that you provide before the deadline. If you send that new score within a day or two, there's a chance we might be able to use that new one as part of our deliberation. But mostly, I would say it's too late to change the GMAT score that you submitted with after the event. And so your application will be considered with the GMAT score that you send through with the rest of your application materials on that deadline. There were a few people asking about specific scores in the language proficiency test. I'm not going to get into too much detail about that today, simply because we're trying to remain focused on scholarships. But as I mentioned, there is an application tips webinar that will go into that detail on January the 3rd. Breanne?
No.
Okay, so looking at the Pershing Square question, how many people are accepted on average yearly for the Pershing Square? It's around 5 or 6 people. What's important to point out here is that if you're already studying at Oxford, already in an MSc, and you haven't yet applied to the MBA, as a potential incoming MBA student that's already at Oxford, you can still apply for the Pershing Square, and you'll just be rewarded half of it. So you'll have your MBA year tuition paid for. So don't think you have to be at the very beginning of that 2-year journey. You can be halfway through it, or at least halfway through your MSc year already, and still apply to the 1+1 program and be considered for Pershing Square. So mostly it's 5 or 6 people. That can sometimes be 5 or 6 individuals, or maybe 4 individuals and 2 half scholarships that go to people that are already on the MSc. But it's around 5 or 6 awards annually each year. And I think Breanne mentioned a little bit earlier, the number of people that are generally awarded scholars is around the same.
Yeah, up to 5. Yeah.
Thank you. Each year. That is most of the questions that we've had. A few of them are looking at some similar themes. Let me just make sure that there's nothing that stands out that we haven't yet covered. This one here is asking about a waiver for the application fee. It's possible, yes. If you think that you are going to need that, please do get in touch on that email address that's on that screen in front of you. We do have some parts of the world that will qualify more automatically than others. We also have some individual profiles that might qualify more automatically than others. But please don't think as though it's not possible. It certainly is. Just get in touch, let us know your situation, and we'll be able to give you an answer very quickly, Breanne.
Yeah, and for the school scholarship, we do also provide application fee waivers for the MBA, and there's more information on schoolscholarship.org, but basically you need to send a CV and a statement explaining why you think the school center should pay for your application fee.
Thank you. Alberico, thank you very much for your comment regarding the GMAT and the timelines. Alberico has talked about how officially your score may take up to 21 days to arrive from the GMAT test center. And so if you're looking to apply on January the 11th, he's very kindly worked out that you should be taking that test by December the 21st. Just on that, folks, I would say you can apply with the unofficial score that you get given on the day. We don't have to see that official score from the GMAT center with your application. We will need to see it at some point, but you will get that score given to you on the day as soon as you take your test, and that often is enough for you to apply with. So I wouldn't recommend you leave it until the 10th or the 11th, but there is time for you to get that unofficial score over to us, and that will be enough to at least get your application moving. Don't feel as though you have to get the official score from the GMAT test center before you can apply. But Alberico, thank you. I appreciate your concern, and it's a good clarification point. So thank you for sending that through. Somebody asked me if I can share my email address. You absolutely can. Yeah, let me. Okay, let me write it in the chat box. Bear with me for one moment. Let me just type this out for you. If you have any questions or you would like to get in touch with me as an individual, I do help manage that MBA recruitment at SBS inbox, so I can get back to you on there. But if you'd like to reach out to me individually, I'm going to type this into the chat box so everybody should be able to see this in just a few seconds. Please do feel free to get in touch should you have any particular questions around scholarships, around the application process as a whole, around a CV review, anything at all around the application process, then please do let me know and I'd be very happy to help. I would think that's probably all of the questions that we've had. Thank you again for all of your company and your attention and your sensible questions. Please do reach out should you have any that we haven't been able to address. You've got a couple of ways of getting in touch. Do your research, make sure you hit those deadlines, make those essays as strong as you can, and we look forward to receiving your application in the January deadline. Thank you again. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll speak to you very soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.